thank you so much, Mr. Facifume, to joining me on the Sami Parvez show. It is always an honor and privilege for me that you are appearing here.
Happy to be on.
Thank you, and thank you so much for joining me on this uh, New Year Eve and Happy New Year.
Yeah,
And
happy New Year to you.
thank you very much. But unlike us, like rest of other Canadian, it seems like it is not. It won't be a happy New Year for Justin Trudeau and his ministers. So there is a chaos like happening like since December 16. It has been happening for a while, but now it seems like the fire is burning and is spreading wide. Like it seems like it's covering all the forest. As Chrystia Freeland stepped down, it was a sudden, I think it was a shocking and a surprising resignation on December 16th. But let's begin with Chrystia Freeland resignation. What are you expecting this resignation, or is there what there any thoughts, because she's supposed to deliver the fall economic statement, but instead of delivering that statement, she said, no, I'm going to resign, because they had a call, according to mainstream media, particularly Global Mail cited sources, that Trudeau told him on Friday that she would deliver the statement, then she would no longer be the finance minister. Particularly, it could go Mark Carney. So I need to know, like, was there any sense that Freeland would a departure on that day?
Well, it's funny you mentioned the fire catching for the Liberals, and I think that fire had been smoldering for a long time. I think more members of Justin Trudeau's caucus than I think would like to admit have had some serious doubts over the Prime Minister's ability to lead over the past year or so. It's been growing behind the scenes. It's grown, and I think that Freeland stepping down, particularly when she did and how she did it, I think that was the bucket of gasoline on the embers, and that just
Yeah,
set everything in a fire. You've got large swaths of the party demanding that he step down. The Ontario and the Alberta caucuses of the party, had said they have no faith in him. Just right after Christmas, George Chahal, the Liberal MP in Calgary, I think the only Liberal MP left in Alberta now that Randy Boyson was gone. He sent a letter to the Prime Minister saying he should step down. So, yeah, his allies are growing very, very far and few between. I think as the as the poll numbers come in, and I think as they start pulling lower and lower, the Liberals have nowhere to go. I wrote about this the other day. Angus Reid released some numbers on, I think it was Monday, saying that the Liberals are polling at 16%, which is lower than what Michael Ignatieff was polling before the 2011 election, and that turned out to be the biggest, like the biggest washout in the Liberals' history, in their 157-year history, and he was polling 17%. So really, when you look at it, it's, the Liberals on track for a historic thrashing whenever the next election is. No one's going to be spared. People are there's a lot of speculations about how many seats they're going to get. Some people are saying that there's going to be no seats. I think that's incredibly unlikely. The Prime Minister is definitely going to win a seat. I think Krista Freeland's most likely going to win her seat again. You are going to see the Liberals win seats, but it's going to be so few and far between. I think you're gonna see you're gonna see them third party status. You're gonna see them completely wiped out completely wiped out of the House of Commons. And they really, at this point, they got nobody to blame themselves. They got nobody to blame but the Prime Minister. And I think the Prime Minister and his closest people, you got Dominic LeBlanc, Mark Miller, Katie Telford is your chief of staff, and like the people that tie it in are the only ones who really think that the Prime Minister has a chance. But really, it's just kind of sad at this point, really.
Mhm. Yeah, and but it is being reported that Trudeau wanted to step down on Monday when Chrystia Freeland gave his resignation from as Minister of Finance. So, so, so I need to know, like, did Trudeau really said that he's going to step down? Because then it is also being reported that uh, Dominic LeBlanc and Mark Miller, I believe, Telford told him that not to step down right now. Let's see what we can do. Like to just keep going. So it seemed like like it is being called it many times. Like you all also mentioned, like we saw like Trudeau being called from one MP, then silent him that no, Trudeau is going to stay until next election, and prime minister himself is been saying that he will lead the liberal party until the next election. But so is it true that Trudeau wanted to step down on December 16th?
I've heard that before. I have no idea if it's true or not. I think the only people that can answer that question is him.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I did hear that he did want to step down, but he was convinced otherwise by this people I mentioned, LeBlanc, Miller, and Telford is pretty much his closest allies right now. And you're seeing a lot of. It was interesting. During over the Christmas holidays, there was Jerry Butts, the former principal secretary of the prime minister, and school friend from way back. And he issued a blog post that
Yep.
was very critical of Trudeau, which is very surprising because you never really heard about Jerry after he left. He was forced to leave his job after it was the SNC-Lavalin scandal. Can't remember which, just trying to remember which all, there's been so many scandals, it's hard to remember, hard to keep them in track.
Yep.
But yeah, the SNC-Lavalin scandal. But yeah, from what I'm told, that the relationship after that deteriorated quickly. Um, that Butts and
Trudeau.
Trudeau are not close anymore. They're not friends, and I think the what we saw in that blog post, was proof of that. So yeah, it's I think that you fill one hand with facts and the other hand with rumors, and which one gets full first, kind of thing.
Mm-hmm.
It's I think there's lots of rumors going around what happened, but I think that I think it's a pretty safe bet that he's being encouraged to stick around. But we'll have to see how long it takes for the party puts the foot down. I think that at this point, I think everybody in the party is resigned to the fact that they're going to lose, that the next election is not going to be pretty. Um, Prime Minister, does he think that he's got a fighting chance? Yeah, I'd say yeah. I think that the guy's got enough of an ego to not count himself out. And the other fact that a lot of people don't talk about is that Trudeau. I mean, Polyev really gets under Trudeau's skin. Like Trudeau does not like Polyev at all. Like everything that Trudeau does, from his slogans to his ribbing, like it really gets under Trudeau's skin. So I think for him too, it's a matter of personal pride as well. I think Trudeau really does believe that that they're not doing a bad job. They're just doing a bad job at explaining themselves. And they think that, and for years they've thought that their problem isn't one of policy, but of communication. That they're just not doing a good enough job to explain themselves to Canadians, which I think is the height of arrogance of any government to think that they have all the answers. But yeah, it's I think a lot of people would love to know what's going on behind closed doors these days.
Mm-hmm. Yep. And but so right now, what I know, like you saw the new advertisement of Liberal Party where it is showing Justin Trudeau. Like he keeps saying that. I mean, he did a lot and he's going to do more. But what do you predict? Are we going to see like in January, like when the Parliament resumes? So he's going to step down, or they would prorogue the Parliament. So what are you hearing from the sources? And as you are an experienced journalist, so what do you predict?
Honestly, anything's up in the air right now. I don't think anybody who says they have the best answer what's happening is just a bigger bullshitter than the rest of them. I don't think that there's yeah, I think there's a lot of theories. I think that I personally think that I don't think it's going to step down. I think that
Mhm.
it's definitely not going to be. Pardon me, I apologize about that.
Yeah, so what do you predict? Like I know like it is hard to predict at this time. It could be like everyone says their own analysis. But do you think like before the parliament resumes, or after the parliament resume on January 27th. So prime minister is going to step down as the leader, or maybe prorogue the parliament. Or there could be another thing, like when everyone is calling to resign, why not just go to an election?
Well, I think that I think nobody's got the inside track on this. There's a lot of people saying that they know what's going to happen, this, that. He's going to do this. He's going to do that. Nobody but the prime minister knows what he's going to do, and I think even he doesn't really know what he's going to do at this point. But the yeah, the issue that you see is that I don't think, like I said before, I don't think that Trudeau's ego will allow him to step down. I don't think he's going to step down. I don't think he's going to do that. I think he might prorogue Parliament. I think at the very least to stave off any attempt to bring the government down, as you saw last or earlier this week. The Conservatives had said that they were going to try to introduce uh, a non-confidence vote through a committee that they chair, the Public Accounts Committee, which is a committee that's chaired by a Conservative MP. That has been tried before. I believe during the Paul Martin area, I believe. I think then, and it didn't work.
Mhm.
So anyway, then like whatever attempt that they make would have to have full NDP support. Jagmeet Singh has said that he wants to bring the government down, but it really stands to reason if he's going to support any motion that comes along, or if he's going to do it just on his own terms. I think the NDP's show of tearing up the supply and confidence agreement was bullshit. I think that they've still supported the government at this point, and they've given no indication that they'll stop doing it. Um, but yeah, I think that I've there's a few situations. I think the most unlikely situation is that prime minister is just going to keep everything as is, status quo. He's just going to try to cling to power as long as he can. He's not going to probe parliament. He's just going to rely on Jagmeet Singh keeping the government in power. And I think that's probably a good bet because the NDP don't want an election. They know it's an election they know they're going to lose. But realistically, when has the NDP ever been in the position of an election federally? Um, it's an election they can't afford. From what I hear, they almost they can hardly afford the last election, and they're still paying that off. Elections are very, very expensive, especially for parties like the NDP that don't have the cachet of the liberals or the conservatives. The liberals need money. All they got to do is, the Laurier Club will host like $1,000 plate dinner, and conservatives could do something similar. But the NDP don't have that. They just don't have the size of the ability to do stuff like that. So they're always struggling financially. They rely a lot on donations and support from labor unions and things like that. But yeah, it's an election the NDP don't want. And I think that Jagmeet Singh did what he did just so he could salvage his credibility. Because it was ridiculous to see him every time criticizing the government. He had an active agreement with the supply and confidence agreement with liberals. But yeah, I think that you know, I think all bets are off. I think that the prime minister may decide to prorogue parliament, and if he does, it's going to be to pick a new leader. Because the issue is that you can't have a leadership convention if all the contenders are flying all over Canada to campaign and then have to be back in Parliament for question period or to defend the government from confidence votes, because that's exactly what they're going to what's going to happen. So yeah, I don't know. Yeah, I really don't know, and I'm really not prepared to say what's going to happen right now because it's a little up in the air. I think it's even money on a lot of them. I think that either he's going to prorogue or he won't. It's a 50-50.
Mhm. Yeah, it is hard to predict at this time, and no one knows like what can happen like tomorrow. Yeah, and is there any expectation? So you are not hearing any from your sources that those liberal MPs are calling right now. We heard today like Quebec caucus also called Trudeau to step down. It was before Atlantic Canada always been open for calling Trudeau to step down, and we also saw like last week Ontario caucus also called Trudeau. Majority of them called to step down. But you are not hearing anything from those MPs who are calling Trudeau to step down. They may support the conservative non-confidence motion.
My sources in the Liberal Party are far and few between. I don't have a lot of sources in the Liberals. The ones I do have, they're shrugging their shoulders along with all of us. I hear a lot of Liberals are leaning towards prorogation to act as a cover for a leadership convention. I think a lot of Liberal insiders are expecting the Prime Minister to step down come the new year. Like, don't forget, we've still got a little under a month before the House of Commons sits again. It's not until I think the 25th, I think, that the government, that means that the House of Commons sits again. So we've got time. We've got a bunch of weeks. The Prime Minister's still on vacation. He's probably going to be on vacation until probably, I'm guessing, the first week of the new year, maybe. I don't know. And who knows what's going on? He's skiing in BC. Is he going for his shoes in the snow, I guess? Is he deciding what he's going to do like his father? Or is he just spending the time skiing and just getting away from it all? Is he taking this challenge to his leadership, the biggest challenge that he's ever had in his life?
Mhm.
Is he taking that seriously? I don't know. I don't know. I think any reasonable person would, but with prime minister, it's hard to say. You're dealing with somebody who is at the lunch. He doesn't really. He's on a whole different level than a lot of us when it comes to upbringing and everything else. He's led a very pampered and sheltered life. His introduction into politics was a coronation. So yeah, he hasn't struggled like a lot of his fellow caucus members. He hasn't had to work his way up through the ranks. He never really started as a backbencher, you
Mhm.
know. So yeah, this is all new to him, and I think this is all new to his crew. A lot of them, like Katie Talbert particularly, have been with him from the beginning. They went through the Trudeau mania part too. They were with him when the whole world was back in 2016 and 2015 was falling in love with this sexy young prime minister with the
Yep.
great hair and everything else. And to a lot of them, I think they think the magic is still there, that the Trudeau can't lose kind of thing. But I think all they got to do is just get a pulse of the street. People coming up to him on vacation telling him to go fuck himself.
Mhm.
Every poll is telling him that that he's leading his party to the worst disaster of whatever. But what's going on behind closed doors, who knows?
Yep. Yeah. Sorry. Now I lost. So, have you ever witnessed the anger from frustration the Canadians shared to a prime minister or to a government in the past? Like after 9 years from Stephen Harper or Brian Mulroney or John Christian or Pierre Trudeau, like Senior Trudeau. Have you ever witnessed like such anger right now we have?
Nothing like this. I mean, I remember when Brian Mulroney was voted out, everybody hated. I remember that I was in high school when Mulroney left office, and I remember that there was some assembly one day. I forget exactly what it was for, but people were asking what it was about, and some of the teachers like, oh, maybe Mulroney is stepping down.
Mhm.
And when Chrétien left office and Paul Martin took over, like, see, that's the way Canadian politics works, is that we elect a government and we love them until we don't. Like there, yeah, it's the opposite of the Seinfeld example. Jerry Seinfeld ended his show when it was at the top of the ratings. He wanted to go out on top instead of, he wanted to burn out instead of fading away. And Canadian politics doesn't do that. We don't have term limits. We don't have set terms like they do in the States, where you know, Donald Trump could be as popular as he ever was. At the end of this current term, he can't run again because of the law.
Mhm.
We don't have that in Canada. We just, we suck it up and spit it out. We use up all the goodwill, and then as soon as people can't stand them anymore, they vote somebody in. And don't
Yep.
think that same thing with Polyev in like 7 or 8 or 9 years.
Yep.
People are going to be sick to death of him too.
Yep.
So, and that's just the way Canadian politics works. Like we elect a really popular government, we hate them, Someone new comes in, it's like, oh, thank God, change, 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 all more of the same. And I guarantee
Yeah.
in 7 or 8 years, it's going to be like, by Champagne or Anita Anand or Carney or whoever's still left in the Liberal Party back at that time
Yeah.
to be voted in as the great savior after everybody gets tired of years of polio. That's just how it works again.
Hmm. Yep.
Just we
Yeah.
just we chew up governments and spit them out.
Hmm. Yeah. So as you brought up, state like right now, and Trump is. It means since it has been a while, like since Trump posted on social truth, on his own media, that he would put 25% tariffs on Canadian products. Then Trudeau, Dominic LeBlanc visited Trump, meet him in his palace. So so now they are. It seems like they are doing everything to control the border and other thing, putting measure on lots on it. But why Trump is doing? Is Trump is just trying to humiliate Trudeau, just taking the revenge, as we saw, like Trudeau always been criticizing Pierre Poilievre as Trump, like using his style or making Canada great again, those slogan. It mean he was just pushing uh, Pierre Poilievre. Now is Trump is taking revenge, like just now he is in power.
Well, the thing about Trump is you have to realize he's an asshole. Like he's a troll.
Mhm.
He's got a very weird sense of humor, and he's just doing it because it's getting a reaction out of people. And Trump's a bit of a child too. He does things like my 6-year old's the same way. She'll push her boundaries until she gets in trouble. And Trump's doing the same thing. He's making these Canada 51st State comments because he knows it gets under people's skin. He knows that it pisses people off, and he knows that he's doing it as a reminder to Canada that he's still there and he's watching. I don't think it changes anything. I think that it's just part of dealing with a Donald Trump presidency. You got to put up with this kind of childish behavior because that's kind of his thing. It's kind of what he does. Um, it's clutching pearls and getting all bent out of shape over it is helping nobody, and it's just making people laugh at them. But yeah, it's you got to deal with Donald Trump as he comes. You have to one thing that Trump respects is strength. And I think that you know standing up to him is something that it's the only thing that he really understands. And I think that he doesn't respect people who snivel and whine and complain and cry. He respects people who kind of meet him at his level. Like kind of that's that's the secret to dealing with them, and I think that's something that our current government is not equipped to deal with, especially at this point. That's the other factor when it comes to Canada's political woes right now. We're dealing with a new government in Canada at the same time we're dealing with a new government in the States. It's
Mhm.
especially with this tariff issue coming up. You know, the inauguration's coming up pretty quick. And
Mhm.
that was the deadline that Trump put in place to, for certain changes to make at the border. And if any of that involves legislation, it's never getting passed. The House of Commons is still, even though they've risen to the holiday, they're still locked in the privilege motion because the Liberals refuse to hand over documents related to the green slush fund scandal.
Mhm.
So if anything, any changes in the border or anything like that require legislation, it's never going to get done. A few days ago, the finance minister, Dominic LeBlanc, um, said in a press release saying that they were going to be looking into extending the charitable donation deadline until 2025. Well, guess what? That takes legislation, and that's
Mhm.
never going to get passed.
Yep.
So, you know, why did they do it now? I don't know. The charities have been asking for a while. I think a little bit after when the Canada Post strike started to do it, and the government doesn't act until Christmas week. I think if the government was really serious about doing it, they could have taken care of it before the House rose.
Mhm.
At least try to negotiate something. But what they're doing is they're using this as another cudgel to use over the conservatives' heads, saying, look at this, the conservatives won't let us extend charities,
Mhm.
charitable deadlines for taxes. The conservatives hate charities. It's going to be. I guarantee that's what's going to happen, and I guarantee that's
Mhm.
why they did it when they did.
Mhm. Yep. Yeah, you are absolutely right. And so like so if like let's say if we have another election, like new election within a few months or whatever, like a conservative would form the government and Pierre Poulier would become the prime minister, and we know like Jamal Jivini, one of conservative MP, is a close he is a close friend to JD Vance, and you know, so would it be so? Is there any chances that suddenly Trump would drop off those 25% tariff threats? Is there any way? Do you think?
I don't know. I don't think that I think Trump has maybe heard of Polyev's name. I don't think Trump bothers to educate himself or learn about sort of what's going on in Canada right now.
Mhm.
I don't know. I think that Canada looks at the U.S. through a Canadian's eyes, thinking that that Trump is aware of everything that's going on. Trump is can't wait for Polyev to come in because he's conservative and all that. And I don't even I'm not even sure that Trump would be able to pick out Polyev's face and photograph. I think
Mhm.
that I think we can't afford to start thinking like that. I think that we just have to take it as it comes. Um, is Trump serious about the tariff threat? I don't know. If they do it, there's a lot of things that Canada could do to retaliate. Like for example, Doug Ford, who has been, a lot more statesman-like than the prime minister.
Yep.
He's starting to cut off electricity exports to the U.S. and that's a huge deal. The U.S. Especially around the Ontario and Quebec, they import a lot of power from the U.S. Especially in Quebec, they produce far more electricity than they can use. Ontario always has a surplus of power that it sells south. They cut that off. The U.S. is going to be in a really tough spot. And further down, you got the issue of water. California and southwest of the U.S. is facing a huge drought, and at some point they're going to start needing Canadian water more and more than they do now. Turn off the taps, Canada's the biggest country the U.S. imports oil from.
Yep.
Canada doesn't send its oil across the country. We don't have Alberta oil in Canada. Um, whatever oil we don't produce here, we got to import from other countries because the activists have not let us create infrastructure to transfer our oil east. So, all the Western Canadian oil, either goes overseas or it goes south. So, the trade relationship between Canada and the U.S. is very, very, it's very complicated. It's very tricky, and I think that I think that there's more to it than just Trump making threats, and I think that if he's not educated about the differences, then he's going to learn the hard way when, suddenly people in the middle of winter in Michigan and New York State and and uh, and other states have no power.
So can Ontario like turn off the electricity like within just a minute, or it goes through like a passing bill or doing passing legislation, then it can happen.
Not sure how it works. I don't know. It could just be as simple as them cutting it off. I don't know if there's contracts in place, like some sort of like a multi-year deal guaranteeing a certain number of kilowatt hours. I don't know. That's definitely something that the premier's office, I think, is considering. Is
Mm-hmm.
this just a baseless threat that
Yep.
Doug
Yep.
Ford is lobbing south? But that's speak about Doug Ford for a minute. That's the kind of strength that Trump admires. Trump
Mhm.
likes people who stand up,
Yep.
stand up for them, which is something that Trudeau's remained very silent. His
Mhm.
ministers have remained very silent. You've got that you've got the Canada's premiers, especially Doug Ford, who are taking such a strong step forward here. It's Doug Ford is I think doing more to shore up this problem than Ottawa ever is right now. I think that
Yep.
people in Ottawa need to remember that.
Yep. Yeah. And right now, like just last part. So right now, Canada is putting more efforts, like reducing the immigration number and putting more efforts in on the controlling border. Do you think it is all because of Donald Trump, or we just have more people are coming in and using is illegally, like just crossing to US like illegally, or just coming in and exploiting the immigration process?
I think Canada's had its come to Jesus moment about immigration before this whole tariff thing. The whole cost of living crisis and the fact that you can't find places to live. Issues with with international students and things like that. There've Canada, the sort of liberals have been so dead set on. Like, they've been so blindly following this migration policy that it's sort of ignoring other considerations and other factors, like the fact that it's hard to find places to live, it's hard to find work, it's hard to find cheap groceries right now. And I think that if the cost of living crisis will go towards helping fix our broken immigration system, I think that the Trump tariffs will help fix our broken border.
Hmm.
People just don't realize how porous the U.S. Canadian border is. Particularly out west. Like I've lived for decades out in Saskatchewan and Alberta, where you just walk across. Like there's
Wow.
there's absolutely nothing stopping you. It's not like you live in Toronto, like your only concept is the border is the Niagara Gorge or the Detroit River.
Yeah.
It's you just can't walk across those. But out west, and particularly there's places in Ontario and Quebec where you can do that. But out west, especially, like I had a former colleague at a TV station I used to work at who was going hunting along the North Dakota Saskatchewan border. He was on his quad with his hunting rifle in the back, and he accidentally ended up in the States. He came out of a clearing, and all of a sudden he's seeing American flags on houses. He's seeing U.S. post office boxes, and he's like,
Wow.
"Oh shit, I'm in the States." So he went and turned himself in, and they yelled at him and let him back across. But that's just how porous it is. It's a border that you can accidentally walk across without realizing it. Like
Hmm.
they've got those monoliths, at certain points and stuff, but it's you know it's just a matter of walking across. Like there's for most of the border, there's no ditch, there's no fence, there's no like at obvious places there's signs, but if you go deep in the wilderness, it's easy to cross, and people do it all the time. There's been lots of cases of people doing it.
Hmm. Yeah. Okay. Thank you so much. Just like we are short, like 5 hours from 2025. Would you like to make any predictions? So any weird thing could happen, like on the new year, anytime soon, or what would happen? What's your guess?
It's procrastinating here. I'll maybe pull up my crystal ball and I don't know. I think it's gonna be an interesting year. It's gonna be a fascinating year. You've got a brand new administration in the States. We're looking at a federal election. We're looking at a provincial election here in Ontario. It's gonna be a year of change. It's gonna be a year of headlines, and it's gonna be a year of long hours for us. So yeah, I think that 2024 was an okay year, and hopefully 2025 will be the year that we start recovering from our mistakes and moving forward and making life in Canada better again from everybody.
Mhm.
So,
Okay, thank you, thank you so much, Brian, and wishing you and your family and loved one a very happy New Year 2025. And thank you so much for taking time on the New Year Eve for joining us on the Sami Parvez show.
no, anytime, Sammy. Thank you so much and Happy New Year and all the best to you and your family for 2025.
Thank you so much. My pleasure, sir, and thank you, and same wishes to you and your family, sir. See you, and hopefully see you again after maybe 1 or 2 weeks in the new
Yeah,
year.
yeah, sure. Yeah. Get in touch with me anytime. I'd be happy to
Yeah,
do this.
sure, sir. Thank you so much.